All right, welcome back, baseball fans. 1973-76 off-season look. Tonight we're looking again at the keeper list. The four players that each team will keep in the off-season, and we're just trying to dial in what year would be the best year for a lot of these players. Now we started last week with the first teams, and weird, really weird. Okay, that was weird. My spreadsheet started to lose boxes, and they came back. Okay, we had 8 teams last a week, beginning alphabetically with Arizona and Atlanta, Baltimore, Boston, the Expos, California, and the Cubs, White Sox alphabetically. We're going to pick up with the Cincinnati Reds tonight, and looking at their 4 players they want to keep and figure out what is the best year that we should select. Beginning with Hall of Famer Johnny Bench. In the 4 years, his best years are 74 and 75, over 800 OPS. 76, they win the World Series, of course. They're back-to-back. But he didn't have a very good year in 76, though he was very good in the playoffs. Oddly enough, hit like 234, but he rebounded right when they needed him to. Pedro Bourbon has got a pretty flat performance across the board. It doesn't really matter too much. Clay Carroll, similarly, except 73, he puts a lot of men on base. You want to stay out of that card. And lastly, Gary Nolan. And what's really interesting here, he has a magnificent 72. Then he gets hurt in 73, so no card for him there. I think he comes back in 74, is pretty ordinary. Then a lot of people want to align the championships in 75 and 76 with the Joe Morgan MVP performances, and rightly so. But you can also say, look, Gary Nolan came back and had his 2 best years since the great season of 1972 when they went to the World Series. So the 3 of the 5 years where Gary Nolan pitched for the Reds, they went to the World Series, winning 2 out of 3 times. So you could add that to the list of accomplishments for the Cincinnati Reds. We got Baseball Reference open down here for players we may want to look at. Let's continue to Cleveland. They went out in the offseason and they made a deal for Ramon Hernandez, a guy out of Pittsburgh. And 73 is his best year. And, of course, you have Gaylord Perry. And 74 is his best year in this line. He was in the All-Star game. Fritz Peterson pitches in all 4 of the years, but he starts to wind down in 76. You want to stay out of that card. And lastly, Dick Tidrow in all 4 years, but by 76 he's with the Yankees and pitching exclusively out of the bullpen. That's his best performance. So if you are Cleveland, you have a unique opportunity to change history a little bit. Hold on to Dick Tidrow. Don't trade him to the Yankees and compromise, the World Series teams. This is what we're trying to do in this league. Make it a little more even. The results of the trades, so you don't have to make the exact same mistakes or the exact same moves. You can hold on to guys if it seems logical. And in this case, what you're also doing is you're taking a guy from a different year, 3, 4, and 6, leaving a lot of flexibility on who you draft with your other 5 picks. So that could be the Cleveland solution. Let's go to the next team. And it's Colorado. Dick Drago. He's in all the seasons. He starts with the Kansas City team in 74. Eventually he's on the Red Sox by 75-6 as a reliever. Still a good starter in 74. Dave Duncan has really only one good offensive year left. It's with Power in 73. He's like a 230 hitter, but he's got a lot of homers. And his offense is pretty dreadful in the next 3 years where he goes to Baltimore. Interesting player, Joe Liss. Extra player card extraordinaire. Usually had under 100 at-bats. Has a 73 card. Strat made a 76 card as a, I mean, he had actual statistics, but they listed his card as estimates. And they also assigned him to the Seattle Mariners in the, this is pretty interesting what Strat did in the 76 roster sheet. They assumed you were playing, you know, the following summer, and you wanted to have players for Seattle and Toronto. So they actually gave you rosters to assign players from other major league teams and give them to Seattle and Toronto. And they gave Seattle Joe Liss. Liss actually was someplace else in 76 with some good statistics. Here we go. He played from 70 to 77. Kind of the homer walk strikeout combo player. Yeah, he's with Cleveland. And he's got an 851 OPS. 75, he only had 18 at-bats, and he's ridiculous. 1368 OPS. So they're not going to print that card. But they do have two cards printed, the 73 card and the 76 card. All right, moving on here. Ron Reed, interesting, intriguing player. He has been assigned to the Colorado Rockies early on in the expansion of this, and they keep re-upping him every year because he pitches a very long time. A lot might not remember how long the Ron Reed career lasted. Let's take a look at it now. 66 to 84. Completely through the timeline. If you had to guess, like, name all the players, my timeline that I play these card sets is 1969 and 1984. And there's a very short list of players who are available in every year. And believe it or not, Ron Reed is one of them. Really cool little bit of information there. He's got a 74 as a starter with a 114 whip with the Braves. But in 76, he goes to the bullpen with Philadelphia with a .93 whip out of the bullpen. So you have two good options for Ron Reed. Good news for a Colorado team that is starved for pitching. All right, next team, the Tigers. They're getting old. We've been saying this for years, since 1968. But it's really happening, folks. They're getting old. Norm Cash is basically locked into 73. It's the only card they make for him. K-Line, 73 and 4 are available. He's a DH in 74. In 73, he's still a quality defensive outfielder. And Mickey Lolich and Mickey Stanley, they're there in all the years. But frankly, it doesn't matter too much which year you pick. It's a pretty flat performance for both. And they're sagging statistically from their previous greatness. So it looks like, you know, the Tigers are finally going to be conceding to Father Time in the next year. The next team, Florida Marlins. They went out and got Louis Aparicio off the White Sox. He only has 1 year left at 73. Manny Mota, this is a tricky card because he's often just a pinch hitter, and sometimes Strat prints his card, sometimes they don't. It doesn't really reflect the quantity of at-bats he gets. It's just availability of a particular, you know, placeholder for him that nobody else has. So, but in 73, he starts in the outfield. So that's the year to take where he can actually field. After 73, he's going to turn into a pinch hitter with limited availability. Actually, the strategy is you take Mota's 73, last year playing full-time in the defense, and then at the end of the year, you move into his 77 pinch hitting card where it's 398. And that's pretty remarkable. Vada Pinson's getting up there, but in 74, he actually does a little bit better than 73. Plus, it allows you to take Aparicio and Mota in 73 and Pinson 74. And Elliot Rodriguez complements it even further by becoming an on-base machine in the years of 75 and 76. Let's take a look at Ellie. And they're really cool looking cards too, if you ever see these. Yeah, and that was the end of his career. I don't know what happened to him at age 30, but boy. So he only had 66 plate appearances, 90 plate appearances for the Dodgers, 400 on base. And with the Angels, he had 293 plate appearances with he had a 380 on base. And even before that, 373, 376, 382. A 5-year run of an on-base machine catcher. That's fantastic. With the Brewers, Angels, and Dodgers. Good little player there. Next up, Houston. All right. So guess what? Cedeno hit 320 in 72. He's there, of course, in the next 4 years, and he hits 320 again in 73. Durker has an injury, misses 73, but 74 will begin a decline. It's the best year till he starts declining in 75 and 76. Johnny Edwards, longtime left-handed hitting catcher, used to play for the Cincinnati Reds in the early 60s. Then he's with Houston. His career is winding down. He's got 2 good cards left, 73 and 4. Neither one is worth highlighting. But he's a left-handed catcher. And Doug Rader, another flat performance guy. Fantastic defensive player with a lot of power, great range, but it doesn't really matter one year to the next. They're all about the same performance-wise. These guys are really valuable for flexibility when you're drafting. So you don't run into a situation like Florida where you have to take Aparicio here. You have to take Mota there. Forcing, instead of taking 73 Pinson, then you've got to take 74 Pinson. Guys like Doug Rader give you the flexibility to pick and choose. All right, next team, your Kansas City Royals. All right. John Mayberry, let's take a look at him. He's one of these players who alternated good year, bad year, good year, bad year. So it was 73 and 75. 73, 122 walks, a 417 on base with 26 home runs, 895 OPS, 7th in MVP voting. In 75, even better. 963 OPS, 119 walks, 34 homers, 2nd in MVP voting. The other years in between, he hits 234. What's going on, John? Anyway, so they'll take one of those two combinations. Marty Patton is a pitcher that a lot of teams wanted to kick the tires on. He was a Brewer. He was a Royal. He was a Red Sox. They all started him, put him in the rotation, then traded him. Eventually, he would find success in 76 in the bullpen. By the way, if you've been following the carryover league this year, Kansas City had a terrible, dreadful bullpen. So maybe Marty needs to take one for the team, go to the bullpen, fix it, and they'll find some other starting pitcher to take his spot in the rotation. That would be a strong move. Lou Piniella, another alternator. 74 and 76, he's great. 75, he hits below the Mendoza line. And 73 is his last year in Kansas City. Again, a player you could take away from the New York Yankees, where he finds success in 76. And then there's Paul Splittorff, a lifetime Royal. Surprising. Maybe that's somewhat surprising, I guess. But yeah, he kept them around his entire career in Kansas City. Pretty flat performance. Same commentary we had for Doug Rader. Pretty flat performance. Doesn't matter which year you take for him. And I think we have one more team tonight. Yes, it's the Dodgers. So the great Jim Brewer's still great. We had the great Jim Brewer and Don Sutton cards of 1972. He used them for 4 years. They were fantastic. The Dodgers weren't, though. And they never really got far in the playoffs or even made the playoffs. It's a real shame. Matter of fact, Sutton was in the Cy Young list with a losing record and a sub-2 earned run average. Brilliance of Don Sutton and Jim Brewer wasted. Well, the good news is that Jim Brewer still has good years in 3 and 4. And Mike Marshall comes along, and of course in 74, Mike Marshall throws 200 innings as a reliever. So that would be a heck of a back end of a bullpen. Bill Russell, he is a lot like those 4-year runners were pretty flat performance, except it really dips in 75. You might want to remember the divisional races in the National League West in the mid-70s between the Dodgers and Reds. They really weren't races at all, as the division winner often won the division by 20 games. I think the Reds won the West by 20 and 22 games in these years. I don't recall much competition. We'll take a look at that at the end because I'm kind of curious now. And Sutton, again, I didn't really have to highlight this, but yeah, it's not a flat performance. It's a Hall of Fame performance for all 4 years. I should just put exclamation points next to each one of these. So yeah, any of these years is a Cy Young worthy season. Let's take a look at Sutton first before we go to the divisional races. So I highlighted 73. He'll probably lead the league in something in all these years. 73, a .98 whip, 5th in Cy Young voting. 74 leads the league in starts, 4th in Cy Young voting. 75 leads the league in whip, 5th in Cy Young voting. And then 76, 3rd in Cy Young voting. Yeah, pretty amazing. All right, 73. Let's look at the 74 Dodgers, and we'll take it from there. So we'll look at the 74 West schedule and results right here. All right, Dodgers win it by 4. Let's start in 72, I suppose. Yeah, 72, Reds win by 10.5 over the Dodgers. 73, Reds win it by 3.5. That's competitive. And then 74, makes sense that if it was so competitive in 73, the Dodgers would get it in 74, and they do by 4 games. But then 75, it gets ugly again. 20 games, 108 win Red team. It wasn't really that the Dodgers were bad, it's that the Reds were ridiculous. And 76, they cut it in half to 10 games. But bad timing for the Dodgers. Then in 77, it would flip. And the Dodgers now winning this division by 10 games. 78, it's close again, 2.5. So a little bit of history there between the Reds and Dodgers. And again, it'll be the Reds in 79, but I don't think the Dodgers were in second. It's the Astros. And the Dodgers had a losing year. So that's a little bit of history that we throw in there for you. We have actually taken a look at 16 of the 32 teams' keepers. And this is sort of like a map that we're going to use for the draft, because it makes it a lot easier when we're deciding which year to pick if we've got an outline of where to travel. Like, Dusty Baker, do we take it 73? When we have a look like this, it really speeds up the draft. And then you don't want to get locked out by taking 2 players from 1 year and then discovering, oops, you just eliminated the possibility of a player having the best year of his career because that year is no longer available. That's why we go through this process of identifying the best years for the players and try and match it up as best as you can. Obviously, it's not going to be possible in all cases. For instance, right here, the 73 Cubs, Russell, Santo, and Billy Williams. We can't have all 3 of their cards in the league. They can find a workaround by taking one of the present 1973 players, moving out of that card into a future year of 74, 5, and 6. Of course, if you do that with a present card, it means you're pushing your rookies into AAA even longer. That's the ups and downs of manipulating the years of the player. All right, that's it for tonight. Hope you're enjoying the look at keepers. We'll continue this next couple weeks. Thanks for checking it out, and we'll see you next time.